Morning, and welcome to another exciting, action packed episode of the Forward Podcast. I'm Derrick Day, and this season in the Forward Podcast, I'd said that what we're going to do is we're going to really deal with things that will actually help you. I'm not getting into talking about politics or talking about religion or anything like that. Although I will touch on those things, they're not going to be topics because at the end of the day, those are not things that are going to help you with your day to day life. And the whole point of this season of this podcast is getting people to the point where they develop a sense of boldness, a sense of self-reliance, a sense of interdependency even, because yes, you need to be independent, but you also need to be interdependent. You need to recognize that we are all in this together. And so one of the things that I've learned in my 12 years on social media and 20 plus years in media in general is that everyone is a critic. Everyone is a critic. But how that's manifested is very different because the vast majority of people manifest their inner critic in the form of criticism. And criticism is one of these things that if you're going to be in a public space, whether you're an athlete, whether you're an entertainer, whether you're a pundit, whether you're a commentator, you're a podcaster, an influencer, you're going to have to develop some thick skin because people are going to criticize you. They're going to talk about you in a not so positive way. And honestly, this is where you put on your big boy or your big girl pants and say, "Hey, I'm just going to deal with this." And it's tough. I'm not going to lie and say that this is easy and you'll just figure out a way. Every time it happens, it's going to grate at you. And this thing about criticism is that and this is a funny thing because people have told me over the years, well, you need to learn to receive constructive criticism. Now, I'm going to tell you today why that's an oxymoron, and it absolutely isn't true. Because there is absolutely no such thing as a constructive criticism. Because criticism, by nature, is destructive. It is absolutely designed to tear down. Okay. You got to remember that because when people come to you, like I get all kinds of stuff. People will say, "Oh, well, your hair sucks, or your beard sucks," or they'll say something, racially disparaging, uh, and or they'll say something about your writing style sucks, or your presentation, your enunciation, it sucks, it sucks, and basically all of that is criticism because criticism is designed to be destructive. Now I'm going to go through a couple of compare and contrasts here. So criticism comes from a position of ignorance. It's destructive. It says what not to do. It's selfish because it advances the critic's goals. It's vague. In other words, there's no specificity to it. And finally, it focuses on the creator, right? Who's creating the content. And what you have to realize is that people are going to come at you. They come at you sideways. They come at you broadside. And understand what I talk about coming at you sideways or coming at you broadside in the context of like how a car collision that a T-bone is, head on or a T-bone. Those are the two worst kinds of accidents that you can have. And a T-bone is the worst because it's the one you don't see. head on, you actually see that coming. Whatever the timing is, you may or may not. Well, I would say that there's always some time to react in a head on. It just may or may not be the right thing. But in a T-bone, when somebody comes at you sideways, you just don't see it coming. It's out of nowhere. And I want to tell you something today, and this is going to help you, that when people come at you criticizing, fuck them. I mean, honestly, disregard it. I mean, just absolutely shit can it, because a criticism is not there to help you. It exists solely for the purpose of tearing you down. And so you are under no obligation to receive it. Now, this is a funny thing because like in public spaces, like let's say if you're an athlete or a musician and someone offers up a criticism, it could affect your bread. It could affect your money. And when I say that disregard it, that's hard, especially when it affects your earning. But you have to understand, and let me say this. I've just got to get this off my chest because I used to operate from the standpoint that there are no bad people, that that people are just uninformed. Well, I've kind of changed that position a bit. Actually, I've changed it a lot because I've come to the conclusion that there are some people that are just committed to being shitty people, and and it's nice to try to rehabilitate or reform these people, try to rehabilitate them. But honestly, honestly, there are just some people that are just they're fucked up, and they're gonna be fucked up, and they're going to try to rain their fucked uptivity on you, and you have to be prepared for that. Okay, so here's the thing. You got to understand that there's just some shitty people out here, and honestly, shitty people don't create. So if you're a creator, you know, understand that there are going to be some shitty people that come because they specialize in demolition. They specialize in destruction. And I got to say something here regarding church, right? Because there's a lot of talk about deconstruction now, and how a lot of traditional Christians are saying that this deconstruction is evil. Uh, but here's the thing: deconstruction is not evil. It's when you try to keep people from evolving, that's evil. When you try to keep people from changing, try to keep people from learning, try to keep people from growing, that's evil. That's shitty. And what's happening is that there is not an honest critique of deconstruction, only criticism. But again, I for whatever it's worth, for whatever you think of my opinion, I'm giving you the license today to say fuck criticism, because you don't have to endure it. You don't have to receive it. And now you have to recognize that it exists, because again, people are going to come at you. They're going to come at you sideways, and you're going to have to learn how to deal with that, right? Especially if you're creative and you're creating content to share with the world. All right. So I've talked about criticism, and I'm going to tell you something. Listen, criticism is destructive. It has no edifying value. Now let's talk about critique for a minute, because critique comes from a position of expertise. In other words, and this is a really key one, right? Because I don't take advice from someone who knows less than me about what I'm doing, because when it comes to podcasting, when it comes to social media, when it comes to writing, when it comes to speaking, and all of these things, if you haven't done what I've done, if you haven't accomplished what I've accomplished, then fuck you. I don't. Even your critique is of no value to me, because I'm only going to take advice from someone who is going where I'm going or has been where I'm going. But let me continue. So critique comes from a position of expertise. That means somebody who knows that they know. Okay. The second thing, this is the most important thing about a critique, is that it is constructive. It offers improvements, what to do. It's there to help you. It's selfless. It respects the author's goals, not what the critic wants. In other words, it's not all about the critic. See, everyone's a critic, but not everyone's a good critic. But let me keep going here. It's specific. A critique is specific. It deals with things like your writing would be improved if you limited your use of adverbs, for example. That's a positive response to what it is that you're creating. And finally, it focuses on the creation, not the creator. It focuses on the work, not the person. Another thing about criticism is that criticism is frequently personal. And you have to understand this, because it's personal, because it's designed to elicit a negative feeling on the part of the creator. That's what criticism does. But critique edifies. It edifies. And my college English professor, my first college English professor, who his name was Stan Barger, and Stan was a master of the critique, because he would tell you very concisely and very frankly what you could do to be better. And I'll tell you something, my entire writing paradigm is better because of this guy. Because he didn't tear me down. And I had a college English teacher, and I'm not going to mention her name because a lot of people loved her. But she would just absolutely talk about your personality. I mean, in other words, she looked at your writing as some sort of Rorschach test, and it was fucked up. And I'll tell you something. When I used to write for her, I used to write with trepidation, because I just knew that I was going to be personally attacked by whatever I wrote. Okay, so this thing about critique versus criticism, and this also has to do with the license you give to people in your life, because you are the licensee of the franchise of you. You give people power to speak into your life. See, this is the thing, like a lot of quote unquote religious leaders, they like to come on and say, well, God told me to tell you, or some shit like that, right? If this person has no relationship with you, then they have no, if you haven't given them a license to speak into your life, they have no right to speak into your life. And honestly, when someone is doing something without the rights to do it, it's called trespassing. It's a violation. And that's what people do. Criticism violates you. And here's the other thing too, is that a critique will normally come from either someone close to you or someone on the periphery of your life who has your best interests at heart. In other words, it could be someone out on the periphery, they see your potential, they see what you could do, they see your talent, they see your ability, and they say, okay, here's something that you could do. If you'll consider this, this might sharpen your approach, this might sharpen your presentation, and that is something that you can receive, because and you can process that, because at the end of the day, that's going to make you better. Now, I'm going to say this because I frequently am accused of being a critic of religion. And that is a valid accusation, because I'm not trying. See, here's the thing: when you critique something, you're critiquing it because you're saying, hey, I accept that it is here, I accept the value of it, and I want to provide my input to make it better. But see, in my world, I have no desire to make religion better. I want to see religion die. So, therefore, my critic, or as a critic of religion, I'm coming at it from a standpoint of criticism and not critique. I'm not trying to make it better. I'm not trying to improve it. I'm not trying to sharpen its presentation. I want to see it go away. That's me. Now, I'm not saying this to harp on that. I'm just saying that when, there are certain things, like there are people that that are critics of racism, right? And uh, when they're leveling a criticism at or a critique at racism, let me put it this way: people who are critics of racism, they're not trying to critique racism. They're not trying to make it more nuanced. They're trying to make it go away. You follow what I'm saying? If you're looking at something, because and I'll say this too, is that I critique people. I'll criticize a system. I'll criticize capitalism. I'll criticize conservatism, and I'll criticize Christianity and other religions. But the people, not so much. Now, here. Let me say this, because this is where it's personal, right? Because or where I frequently say your mileage may vary, and this is where that the rubber of that phrase meets the road. Because if I choose to, how can I say this? I'm having a brain fart, but um, basically, if I choose to critique something, it's because I want to help it along. I want to edify. I want to edify the creator, and I also want to sharpen the presentation of the creation. But if I'm criticizing something, listen. When it comes, like I said, when it comes to systems, I give no quarter to that. I don't care. Um, and honestly, I just believe that there are some institutions, some ideologies, some beliefs that I think the humanity would be better off without. And because of that, I will criticize those. And I'm very candid about that. I'm very open about that. So here's the thing. When it comes to criticism, when somebody tries to say, well, you don't receive constructive criticism, that's your cue to call bullshit on them, because you don't have to receive any criticism whatsoever. You're under no obligation. And if they give you criticism and you permit it, it's because you give it license. You give it power. Only you have the power to energize a criticism. But a critique, on the other hand, it's like critiques are usually the dominion of coaches. And the coach will give you things that, hey, I see something that you're doing, that if you just tweak this, adjust this, modify this, then this will make what it is that you're doing better. And let me say this too, because I'm criticism can actually be used in a positive sense, because you can use your haters as fuel for your forward propulsion. In other words, you could say, you know something, I'm just going to keep focusing in on what I do, keep sharpening what I do. And eventually, the haters are going to look back and realize how stupid their criticism was. So you can use your haters as your fuel. You can use your haters as your food. But here's the thing, do not rely on that. And I'm going to tell you this also, that your own toughest critic and your own most important critic is yourself. You are your most important critic, and you can frequently be your own harshest critic, especially if what you're doing to yourself is criticizing and not critiquing. You need to view every single thing that you do with empathy and compassion for yourself. Because if you tear you down, it becomes easy for others to tear you down. Because if you believe a bad report about yourself that you create, you'll believe a bad report that someone else creates about you. But if you speak well to yourself, if you critique yourself, if you are in a process of self improvement, if you are in a process of self edification, then you will help yourself. And one of the things that will happen in that case is you will develop a sense of confidence that is absolutely unshakable. And once you have that, can't nobody fuck with you. I mean, basically, when it comes to people's words and thoughts about you, you become essentially bulletproof. And I can't tell you what a liberating feeling that is. That when you get to the point where it just absolutely doesn't make a fucking bit of difference what people say or think about you, it's like the weight of the world is lifted. That's pretty much what I have today. I mean, listen, learn the difference between a critique and a criticism, learn to identify it, and then learn to identify the people that it comes from. Because one of the things that you'll find is that people who criticize you or people who critique you are both consistent about what they do. And honestly, folks, this is me, and again, your mileage may vary. When I see people that their whole MO is criticizing, I kick them to the curb. And people say, "Oh, well, you just do that because of social media." I don't do it because of social media. Shit, I'll kick somebody to the curb in real life. I've met literally tens of thousands of people in my lifetime. And of that, I maintain some form of relationship with maybe about 1,000 people. But my inner circle is tight. I say this all the time. My inner circle is not a circle at all. My inner circle is a dot. The only people that are in that dot are people that are merged with me in some kind of way, that we are one, and I got a handful of them. And if you're one of them, you know who you are. You absolutely know. I don't have to tell you. I don't have to say who's in my dot. But the thing is that, people who are on the outside looking in, and you have to understand is that people are the only people who level criticism at people who are doing something, or who are people who are doing nothing. And you got to remember that, because if you're a doer, if you're accomplishing something, if you have a track record, if you can prove that you've had some influence and you've done some things, guess what? You are under no obligation to take any advice from somebody who ain't doing shit. It's real simple. So that being said, that ends the talking part of the podcast. Now I'm going to go through the comments here, and let me put the link out here in case anybody wants to join in. Because if you want to join in, feel free. Click the link, and you'll show up in my green room, and then I'll add you to the broadcast. Simple, right? So let's look at these comments here. This is a lot of good comments. Let's see. Oh, Marriott from Ireland is saying hi, or from the UK, actually. My man Terry Wilson is in the house. Thanks, Big T. Good to see you. Karen Jones from Texas, thank you for joining. My brother, my friend Ben Urban is in the house. My sister Sandra Day is in the house. I'll tell you something. You know, our family was a little fractured growing up, because my dad has, multiple sets of kids, and but my sister Sandy and I, we managed to come together as adults, and we've been thick as thieves for, oh man, like 40 years. And I just want to say this about my sister, that she is one of the best critiquers that I know. And had she had been in my life from the time I was a small child, I'd be king of the world right now. I really believe that. I'd be president or captain of industry or something like that. My man John Knight, this is a wonderful, talented musician down in the Phoenix area, former member of our Agape family. It's always good to see you, John. Shadrach Bartholomew from St. Lucia. Man, people from all over the place. William Albert from, I can't pronounce that, Aotearoa, New Zealand. But New Zealand, cool. Uh, Big T says, I ended a friendship over continuous criticism. Yeah, absolutely. Fuck them, man. Honestly. I can't say it, I can't think of any kinder way to say that. Ben Urban says bad wiring, and I guess we're talking about people. And honestly, yeah, bad wiring. I mean, it's like if a house is wired poorly, the only thing that you could do is rewire it. Um, John says, I file criticism properly and with due acknowledgement. I don't. It's like, if it's criticism, it goes directly to the shit can. I don't even process it. My man, Pastor Edwin Strickland, is in the house here. He says, people need to know the difference between the two. He says, good teaching. I appreciate that, brother. I really do. C. Rodriguez, good to see you, my sister. Always good to see you. Ben says, if this God has something to say, then he, she, it needs to speak up or forever hold it, her, his, her, its peace. You goddamn right, Ben. And Ben put a link to one of his little teachings there, and I highly encourage everybody to click that link and see what Ben has to say, because Ben is a really, really sharp guy. Um, Says it's an extremely form of necessary constructive criticism to inform another that his or her stances are harmful to them or others. I agree with that to a point, because here's the thing, like I generally don't go after people. I go after systems, but it's like I go after racism, but I generally don't mess with racists. Now, here's the thing, that if somebody's in political office, or if they are ostensibly quote unquote man or woman of God, yeah, then basically you got the bullseye on your chest. You've been painted with a laser, and here comes the incoming ordinance. And yeah, so I agree with you to a point there, Ben. But there's a yes and no there. John says the bottom line, I've been there for a while. Karen Jones says it is liberating. Yes, it is. When you finally just come to the point where you say, I really don't give a fuck what anybody says. You do your thing. Um, Sandy, thank you, sis. She says I received this message. Thank you. And and I receive it. I mean, listen. Everything that I say, I don't rehearse anything. I don't write things down. I don't script anything. I just come out and say what's on my mind. And frequently, it's something that I'm saying that is helping me, as it may be helping someone else. And I love you too, sis, with all my heart. John Hudson says, how do you separate the differences between critique and criticism? Did you miss the show, man? Because I did. I absolutely uh, delineate the differences between the two. But go back and listen to the rest of the show. Um, don't grab something. You turn the channel here and you caught a snippet. You got to catch the whole thing in context, because basically criticism, destructive; critique, constructive. And there's no such thing as constructive criticism. That's an oxymoron. And John says, "Yeah, sorry, I did come in late." So yeah, okay, yeah, yeah. If you check it out, John, you'll get it. You'll see everything that I said. So here's the deal, folks. Once again, here's your opportunity to join in on the fray. You can join in and give your comments or whatever. And if you're cool with it, we'll use it in the podcast. And if not, then, well, I'll hang out here for another 4 minutes and see what happens if anybody joins in. Um, this is another funny thing too, is that when you are a doer, when you are actually doing something, um, basically there are some people that will see what you're doing and they'll say, "Hey, how can I be down? How can I partner with what you're doing?" And that's great if they partner with you, or help align their goals with yours. But when someone steps into your world and all they do, I'm gonna tell you something. I've been doing this lately in social media, and I've been doing this also in my personal life. I'm going through and I'm looking at people who are contributing, people who add value to my life. Because I'll tell you, when in my profession, in basically crafting cloud-based um, data center solutions for customers, I don't just try to get them out of their data center into the cloud. My goal is to show how going to the cloud adds value to your business. Because if it's not adding value, it's worthless. So the thing is that I look at the people in my life and the things in my life, and I'm looking at everything very critically, and determining whether or not these are things that need to remain in my life. And if they don't, then I get rid of them. Gwendolyn, thanks for joining. I see you just showed up. And John says, you can always, without question, Use anything I say in your podcast. It's your choice. I trust your discretion. Yeah, that's cool. I would use your words, but what I would really love is to have your voice. But that's cool. I know some people don't get into the being on camera thing, and but maybe I don't know. Maybe John, maybe you could put it in a song. You're a troubadour, you know, like that old skit in A Living Color. Wrote a song about it. Want to hear it? Here it goes. You could do something like that. That'd be great. Yeah, Gwendolyn, I know you love being on cam. I know you do. Um, and if you have something you want to share about criticism versus critique, you can go ahead and click the link and join in. Love to have you on for a minute or two. But yeah, I'm gonna stay on for one more minute, and then after that, I'm gone. I'm really excited. Next weekend, I'm having custom bookcases put into my office. Hey, Freya, how are you? Yeah, you joined late, but you can always catch the replay, and it's always going to be good. So, I say that to say is that I'm hoping that the weather next weekend is as good as it was this weekend. Because if it is, then I'll be doing this from outdoors next weekend. Because again, um, my guy will be in here. Well, actually, he may not be because he says he doesn't work on Sundays. It's, it doesn't work on Sunday. So I guess if he gets it done Friday and Saturday, then maybe it'll be done. But I'm really excited about that. And then I'm also getting new office doors and um, yeah, just gonna really you know mac the place out. Lynn, how you doing? Good to see you. Always good to see you. Well, that's about it, folks. Nobody joining in, so I'm going to go ahead and end the broadcast. But as always, I hope that you have a fantastic week. Also, if you haven't had a chance, go back and listen to Friday's episode of Phreology Friday. Uh, and Aaron and I, we were talking about the need to be right, and it will absolutely um, rock your world. I mean, it's just really good stuff. So, make sure that you tune in to me and Aaron on Friday nights at 7 p.m. Yeah, 7 p.m. Eastern. That's the time, and we'll adjust for daylight savings and all of that. Be sure you tune into that. And also, if you want to hear some of my thoughts on theology, religion, and all of that stuff, tune into the Heretic Happy Hour, where I'm joined by Keith Giles, Katie Valentine, and Matthew DiStefano, and we chop it up about all things biblical, but from a perspective that is absolutely positively not orthodox or traditional. So, and right now we're in the midst of a series on decolonizing theology because there's a lot of colonization that has gone on in theology, and there's some strong voices out there that are working to do that. And I think in this past week's episode, we dropped the episode with my friend and brother Romel Parks Weekly, who is a black gay pastor, and he knows his Bible, knows it. So that's really cool stuff. So that's all the shout outs and all of that stuff. So I think that my man Aaron Tomlinson will be back on Sundays doing his metaphysical teaching, and I highly encourage you to check that out. And stay tuned. Aaron and I, we got some really exciting stuff coming up. You know, so Ben Urban says orthodoxy was once heresy. Yes, and there's somebody wrote that that all um, all great thoughts begin as blasphemies. So, I'm all about the blasphemies. So anyway, until next time, may you be happy, may you be well, may you be filled with peace.